Happy New Year's, everybody. Welcome back and welcome to the most comprehensive weekly NFL player review series on the internet, my Studs and Duds series. Today we're going to be reviewing the studs and duds in the NFC from NFL weeks 15 and 16. We're going to be going in order alphabetically by team name, and then my goal is to get the AFC up about this time tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. TBD on that. Really pressing, especially on a holiday, to get that done. But that is currently my mission here. So we're going to be going through, like I said, weeks 15 and 16. Whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling. While we do that, per usual, I'm going to be going through this week's update for my own custom Madden roster, which makes for a nice way to show my own perceptions of these players and how my opinion on these guys is changing. So let's get into it. I do ask you, please take a second to hit that like button down below to help support the series, my roster, all that good stuff. The channel really helps me out. Excited for 2021, baby. Let's make it a good one. All right, starting with the star of the week. And it's really star of the weeks, plural. And it's going to be none other than Haason Reddick, former first-round draft pick for the Arizona Cardinals. Frankly, a bust for years. But it just goes to show you that A, scheme fit matters so much for so many players. And B, you can't always give up on a player after the first few years. Reddick was a total tweener coming into the league as an undersized edge player for years. Arizona has been trying him back and forth between off-ball linebacker, hybrid edge rusher straight up, going through multiple defensive coordinators. They just have not been able to find a use for this guy who has a very specific skill set, and that is speed and bend around the edge. But with that athleticism, they thought they could basically pull an Anthony Barr and turn him into an off-ball linebacker. Clearly, he does not have those instincts in coverage. He doesn't have the thumping ability to play a linebacker position, but playing much more of a true edge role this year. He's still doing some hybrid stuff, and he absolutely has experience dropping into coverage, arguably more experience than any edge rusher in the league right now because he played so much off-ball. So he does bring an asset in that department, but it is what he's doing as a pass rusher, particularly over the last 3-4 weeks, has been amazing. He now has over 50 pressures on the year and double-digit sacks. The dude is just going off and in a contract season, and I'm very fascinated to see who pays this guy. You know, there's teams like New England, Miami that could use some high upside in this in the New York Giants that run this Bill Belichick hybrid 3-4 defense, and I can imagine Haason Reddick, the better days of his career may be ahead if someone, and maybe Arizona resigns him, I don't know, because they're using him in a similar role, but the best days of his career could be ahead if him and his agent pick a good scheme fit that can utilize his skill set. But Haason Reddick, props to him, 72 to a 75, and then the dud of the week, probably the most clear-cut decision of any player this year, and that is Dwayne Haskins, now currently a free agent. The number 15 overall pick last year for the Washington football team. And this is a polarizing topic. You don't often see a team release a quarterback that they invested such high draft capital in so soon, not even before the end of his second season, and he's not even started, I don't think, a full 16 games in his career, but the games that he has started have not looked good, and that's the problem here. A lot of people like to say, Dwayne Haskins, he'll keep getting opportunities. He's got the talent, all this stuff. But in reality, as a prospect, as a player, he is not a talented player. He's not overly athletic. His arm is good, not great, but there's plenty of quarterbacks available with the arm comparable to Dwayne Haskins. The reason he was a first-round pick is because he was so productive in college, and the way he did it, dissecting defenses, getting rid of the ball quickly, looked like a guy that was going to come in with a high floor early on. And the fact that guys like, banged up Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke have shown a better ability to play with that confidence, to read defenses, to make better decisions, and frankly, guys like Kyle Allen just have more physical talent than Dwayne Haskins. So yes, he will continue to get at least one more opportunity, but it is all about Dwayne Haskins starting to take this thing seriously. And until he does that, I can't sit here and tell you that he deserves an NFL roster spot, that anything. I mean, he's just not a good quarterback, and he needs to, put the weight on him and turn his career around. But the dud of the week, Dwayne Haskins, getting released by the Washington football team. So now that that's out of the way, let's go through the teams. We're going to go in order here, starting with the Bears. Lots of movement here for the team on a 3-game winning streak. Mitchell Trubisky going up for the second week in a row, just playing with much more confidence, throwing the ball more accurately. He's not fixed. He still has bad mistakes, but just very clearly playing some of his best football. He's done this before. I don't think the Bears should recommit to him, but there's a chance we get Mitchell Trubisky in a playoff game this year, which is pretty insane. Then David Montgomery going up for the third week in a row. He is establishing himself to me as a top 10-ish running back. He's right in that cluster to me with, say, Kareem Hunt, Miles Sanders, maybe Chris Carson. There's some guys right on the fringe of that 10th spot. I think after you rank everyone after Aaron Jones, you're kind of competing for that number 10 ranking. But regardless, David Montgomery has been helping this offense really tick and fighting for tough yardage behind a poor offensive line that they need some guys to convert tough first downs and frankly provide some explosiveness to the offense as well. So he's been really awesome. Just many shades of Kareem Hunt in his prime for the Chiefs here with David Montgomery this season. And then Cody Whitehair, again, stick him at left guard. Don't put him at center anymore. He's just clearly a dominant guard. He's skyrocketing his ranking here at left guard, but it was falling at center, and that's been kind of the story for his career. So the Bears have extended him. I think you play him at guard. Maybe James Daniels can either play center or right guard. But Cody Whitehair at left guard should stick. And then Alex Bars is making a case as well to let's just say make a case to be a competition piece for a starting guard next year. I liked him coming out of Notre Dame. Good athlete, but a guy that needed to add some play strength, and he appears to have done that here for the Bears. And he's also playing next to his college teammate at center. His name's escaping me. But, that's the offensive line boost. Jimmy Graham having a late career resurgence here. He seems to have remembered how to catch the football, which was a problem for him in Green Bay. Still not much of a blocker. Still not, particularly explosive tight end at this age. But he's that red zone threat. He's that reliable third down target. And he's having a decently productive season this year. And then Allen Robinson, time to give this man some love. I mean, he is going off the last few weeks. It's really that simple. I mean, he is a complete receiver. He is in the final year of his contract as well, and we'll see how the Bears play this. I don't see them letting him out of the building with the way he's playing. They got to lock him up because this offense, David Montgomery's doing a lot of nice things, but Allen Robinson is what makes this offense truly run. So he is making a case for $21 million here in just a couple months. So he's just a do-it-all, true number one receiver. I would say a top 10 receiver at this point in time. And then Darnell Mooney as well, that fluid route runner coming out of Tulane. And he's just been consistent and steady. He hasn't been lighting up the world, but when they call his number, he gets open. And the drop issues that plagued him at Tulane have been few and far between here in Chicago. He's a great run blocker. To me, he is a replacement for Anthony Miller that just hasn't taken that next step. And I think Darnell Mooney is a very similar player in a lot of ways. And they found a good one on day 3 of the draft here. Then on to the defensive side of the ball. Defense has been doing some nice things as well, though it's been mostly offense taking over here for the Bears. But Bilal Nichols, this is a guy that had an amazing rookie season with that great 2018 Bears defense. Really ate next to a healthy Akeem Hicks. You had Mack and that group of dominant pass rushers. And in year 2, he just took a step back. There was no Akeem Hicks next to him and just wasn't able to get the one-on-ones that he's getting this year. So he's been an impactful pass rusher at times, but he's also a really good run defender. This is a high upside, high athletic interior defensive lineman. And they've also found a really nice piece in Mario Edwards. I don't know what his contract situation is. Probably was just a 1-year veteran minimum pickup, but this is a guy that You put him in a 3-4 defense like the Bears have, and you play him as that kind of 4-eye technique, sometimes a 3-tech inside the tackle. And he is just going to wreck stuff, whether it's in run defense or as a pass rusher. He's doing a little bit of everything, playing that nice rotational role, gets you about 25, 30 snaps, and he's just someone that you have to account for. So that was a really nice pickup. This is a guy that when he was with the Raiders 4 years ago, him and Khalil Mack next to each other, reunited here in Chicago, was looked at as a potential elite tandem for the future, and Edwards just kind of had a falling out. But he has found himself again here for the Bears. Then John Jenkins, veteran nose tackle, is having a nice end-of-season resurgence. He's going to get some respect. Duke Shelley in the slot for the second week in a row. It's just your typical tough, agile, crafty slot corner. Not an elite cover player, not someone you want to step outside, but stepping up with no buster screen in the slot there, or has taken screen's job. Not sure exactly the details on what is leading to Shelley's snaps and all that stuff, but regardless, he's stepping up. And then Tashawn Gibson at safety, another veteran here that is playing much better football towards the back end of the season. So the Bears are rounding out as a team, and we'll find out in just a couple days if it is enough to get into the playoffs. Okay, then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Lots of boost for this offensive line over the last couple of weeks. So everyone other than the left tackle here, Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen, Alex Kappa, Tristan Wirfs, all of these guys shaping up to look like what's one of the best offensive lines in the NFL heading into the playoffs. Shout out to Ryan Jensen, been one of the best run blockers. Ali Marpet, potentially the best guard in the NFL this year. Alex Kappa kind of benefiting from all of this help around him, but he has done a nice job in his own right. And then Tristan Wirfs, honestly, if we cared about offensive linemen as a football conglomerate, Tristan Wirfs should be right in that conversation with the two Justins for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's just been incredible. What a find he was in the draft of super talented tackles, and he was the fourth one that got taken. He should have been the first in hindsight. Then Tom Brady is going to go up. The Lions game is what it is. Brady did look very good in it. So did Blaine Gabbert when he stepped in. I mean, that Lions team was just, it was a not even a practice squad. It was just target practice. But in the second half of the Falcons game, Tom Brady lit the world on fire. He seems to be heading into the playoffs now with a better feel for the scheme, which is important here, and just making reads, not necessarily making reads quicker, but just a more fluid offense in general. And the down the field accuracy has reemerged here. And yeah, Tom Brady getting a little respect here. Rob Gronkowski as well. To start the year, I said Gronk looks washed up, and I think that anyone with eyeballs would agree that lowering his ranking early on was warranted. But this is a guy that was out of football for a year, so it's not surprising that it took him time to get back into shape, to remember how to football, basically, and here he is. Now, he's not blocking at the level that he did in New England in his prime, but he's coming down with some really tough catches. I don't want to say necessarily getting open, but he's providing those kind of tight window, chain-moving opportunities for Brady, and he's getting down the field, converting some really big plays. I mean, when you have Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin, you can't worry about Gronkowski if you're a defense. And Tom Brady knows that he's basically always going to have a one-on-one with Gronk. And worst comes to worst, he can put a well-placed back shoulder to Gronk, and he's probably going to come down with it. So it's just pretty nasty what this offense has. And then just one player moving on the defense is going to be Anthony Nelson, big 6'7", 275-pound edge outside linebacker. Just a nasty run defender. He's been what you would expect from a guy with that physical profile, and he's been a nice piece for what's still one of the best run defenses in the league. Then for the Arizona Cardinals, just two guys moving here on the defense, as the offense has really struggled as of late. We talked about Hassan Reddick, and then Dennis Gardeck, same exact thing here. This defense is really finding out how to use these 235-pound, 6'1" edge rushers, because that's really what both Gardeck and Reddick are. And for a team that doesn't have a traditional pass rush, as far as line up 4 guys and just beat your guys one-on-one. They're finding creative ways to get these guys to get after the passer. Gardick has been not a guy that's getting a ton of reps, but when he's out there, he's just finding ways to sack the quarterback, which is important, obviously. Okay, then for the Dallas Cowboys, lots of movement here, especially on, I guess it's pretty even, 4 and 5, but Connor Williams continues to climb. Just an impressive growth for this player, especially considering the rest of the offensive line has frankly fallen apart this season. So for Connor Williams to come in and maul dudes in the run game and look like he's beefed up, this was an undersized tackle coming out of Texas that needed time to grow into his body, and he's definitely done that. So to get him like this heading into next year, you get your 2 tackles back, you get Zach Martin back, and all of a sudden you're back to glory with this offensive line. Tony Pollard continues to be explosive, and I'm not going to, pound on the he's better than Zeke wagon this week, because Zeke did have a good week last week against the Eagles, but clearly just the more explosive player. Worst case, a better third down option, and all that good stuff. So Tony Pollard continues to impress. And then these receivers looking like they were supposed to coming into the year. Both CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, just really impressive performances this week. Big plays, coming down with tough catches, run after catch, everything that you expected for these guys. And good to see the Cowboys offense just have the confidence between the play calling and Andy Dalton to just, do what they can do to get the ball in these guys' hands down the field, because they're going to make plays. They are, in my opinion, with Amari Cooper, the best group of receivers in the NFL. Outside of maybe Tampa Bay. But then on the defensive side, Dorrance Armstrong, another guy that has come into his body. He was about 235 pounds coming out of Kansas, was the reason he was not a top draft prospect, because he is a really good athlete. Now, hard to know exactly where his burst is at, because he was kind of one of those explosive speed rushers with that bend around the edge. Well, he's close to 260 pounds now. You can only imagine he's lost some of that athletic get-off to compensate for more play strength, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You want to be able to convert speed to power as a rusher, but it has absolutely shown up in run defense. So Dorrance Armstrong playing a early rundown role for this deep group of edge rushers. Randy Gregory being more of the pass rusher here. Really nice out and in move against Jordan Mailata. Just a total mismatch there with Randy Gregory's speed and agility compared to Mailata, kind of the plodding, massive, heavy-footed tackle. Just could not keep up with it. But yeah, Randy Gregory, he's been productive, and he's on the field, which is more than you can say for him over the last 2 years. Seems to have his career back on track. He's still only like 28, 29 years old. He could get another contract and be a guy that is relevant in the NFL for a couple years if he can just stay on the field, because the talent, nobody has ever denied the talent with Randy Gregory. And then Trayvon Diggs, he's been hit or miss, but he's been better than what they've had before Diggs got injured, or after Diggs got injured. Has had some nice pass breakups and hanging in there. He's, not been perfect, but a young corner that looks like at least a potential starter down the road. Then Anthony Brown as well. He's settled in the slot, and then with Donovan Wilson in his second year as kind of a hybrid safety, he has also kind of stabilized this secondary. So some young guys stepping up for a secondary that was miserable to start the year. They've been much more serviceable as of late. Then for the Philadelphia Eagles, we just talked about Jordan Mailata. Yes, he got beat for the 1 sack against Randy Gregory, but the complete body of work over the last 2 weeks, he continues to impress, especially as a run blocker. He really does have nice get-off and obviously play strength and power with the freak athlete that he is. So I don't know what his future holds. A deep group of tackles here in Philadelphia, but he clearly is a guy that can play and hold his own. Yeah, you might want to give him some help if he goes against a Randy Gregory or a Brian Burns, guys like that. It's just an athletic mismatch. But for the most part, he has been really solid there at left tackle. Then Quez Watkins showing up here, plus 265 to a 67. Just a speed burner, kind of Marquise Goodwin comp in this draft. Deep group of receivers, and he looks like another good one in this class. The drop issues are maybe always going to be there with Quez Watkins. It goes back to his days in college. Kind of a Marquez Valdez-Scantling type of player in a lot of ways, but a little more quick and a more natural route runner. I like that pick from the get-go, and he's been making some plays for this team. Nate Herbig, +2 on that right guard spot, has settled back in. He started hot, had some struggles, but he has been a foundational piece of that offensive line that is blocking much better for Jalen Hurts than they did for Carson Wentz for whatever reason. Herbig's been a part of it. And then Ty McGill, veteran defensive tackle, playing good run defense here, +3. And then Jalen Mills continues to be a solid, strong safety option. Not like some elite cover player or anything, but he's been a stable piece there and is going up. And then Kayvon Seymour, a veteran kind of journeyman type of corner, has been getting a lot of playing time here. He's a good athlete. He just hasn't been able to put it together on the field. So there could be something there, but probably still just that veteran journeyman. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons. So Calvin Ridley going to get the respect he has well earned. He has just been lighting up the scoreboard. He's doing it without Julio Jones out there. The route running is just so fluid. He is up there in the top 5 with your Adams, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, these elite route runners in the NFL. He's right there. Now, the ball skills is something he can continue to develop, and maybe he will never get to the elite ball skills type of player to be considered an elite wide receiver, but his route running speaks for itself. He's such a weapon, the separation he creates. So they feel good about the way they have this receivers room set up after Julio Jones, because Calvin Ridley can be a number 1 receiver, as he's proved with Julio Jones out. And they're finding something in Laquan Treadwell as well. 6'2", 215 pounds. He's just kind of a force over the middle of the field. The drop issues have not been there for Laquan Treadwell as they were in Minnesota. He's been getting into the end zone and just been an option for this team. So you got Treadwell, Gage, Ridley, and Olamide Zaccheaus, Olamide Zaccheaus. This receiving group is low-key pretty deep, even with or without Julio Jones, basically. And then on the defensive side of the ball, John Kaminsky going up that bigger-bodied kind of 3-tech, play some D-tackle, some defensive end. And then Dante Fowler is going down. What a terrible signing this was. I mean, is it pretty obvious at this point what Aaron Donald can do for these guys? Between Dante Fowler and Leonard Floyd, both those guys had their best years when they got to play with primetime Aaron Donald, constantly getting one-on-ones. And he comes over here to Atlanta where they don't have any other edge presence. Obviously, you do have Grady Jarrett, who demands double teams, but just falling off the face of the planet. He's won pressure over the last 2 weeks. And he's been absolutely a liability against the run, which has always been a problem for him. So he's just not a good football player. He's way overpaid. That was probably the worst free agent signing of the offseason as we sit here today. And then Sherrod Niesman, veteran safety, stepping up. And a note on Isaiah Oliver. He's playing pretty well. I find it fascinating that he is playing in the slot. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. Usually you see those guys outside or playing free safety. The slot corners tend to be more nimble, quick guys, whereas Isaiah Oliver, more of that lengthy guy, but he's making it work, and he's playing really tough in that role. So great on Raheem Morris to find a nice role for Isaiah Oliver, who just hasn't really flourished since being that second-round pick out of Colorado a couple years ago. Okay, the Washington football team, we had Dwayne Haskins going down. We won't talk about him again, but the rest of the team is stepping up. It's just that quarterback position really is that bad. They have the worst quarterback room in the NFL currently. But the offensive line, all 5 pieces going up. If you want to, whether you make the playoffs or not, if you want a consolation for Washington's offense this year, we knew Terry McLaurin was good, and they found some other guys like Logan Thomas and the running back, but the most important thing here is they've figured out this offensive line. The Cornelius Lucas signing was low-key a really good move, a guy that just was buried behind Leno and Massey in Chicago, but had just stuck around and had played well when they called his number. So good scouting on Washington's part to kind of snipe him, bring him in and make him a starter. He's been a very serviceable, at worst, left tackle, if not a good left tackle. Wes Schweitzer, again, just finding more success here in Washington. He was not good in Atlanta, but seems to have developed. I've talked about how I thought he was like a 33-year-old veteran. He's not. He's only 26, 27 years old. Chase Roullier has been a very reliable center, as has Brandon Scherf, but both those guys are playing some of their best football with more help around them. And Morgan Moses has been revitalized here under a new coach. He's had very good years in his past, but I think maybe just lacks some of that motivation with Gruden and kind of the direction this organization was going. Offensive line, a big part of it is effort and keeping your body in shape. And maybe Morgan Moses just let himself go a little bit. But between Moses, Sheriff, who they need to re-sign, he's on that franchise tag, and then Roullier, Schweitzer, those guys, you can keep them around for years. And then Cornelius Lucas is up there in age, but if he's your weakest link, you feel pretty good about it. So whoever the quarterback is here next year is going to have a pretty solid offensive line in front of him. And then Taylor Heineke going to go up, stepped in about 25 snaps, and looked like one of the best quarterbacks they've had all year, for whatever that's worth. And then Logan Thomas continues to just produce. He's not doing anything particularly special. He's not like a fluid route runner. He doesn't make amazing catches. He's not elite after the catch. He's a okay blocker, but he's just a stable tight end. The former quarterback, he's just been a nice, reliable target for them. They've been feeding him in the receiving game, so I think his numbers look a little better than what he's actually offering to the team, but for a team that has nobody other than Terry McLaurin, it's saying a lot that he's producing. Then Chase Young is going to go up for the second week in a row, just dominant rookie. I think he probably sealed Defensive Rookie of the Year just this week. I mean, he's just so explosive, so athletic. The eye test just speaks for itself. This guy's going places. I think between him and Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, the league, and Brian Burns, the league is in good hands as we fade away from J.J. Watt, Von Miller, and potentially Khalil Mack as those elite edge rushers. And I would even throw Calais Campbell into the mix there. But yeah, young guys on the rise. And then Cole Holcomb, the linebacker, just continues to be so steady, play to play to play. He's a good athlete, smart player, tackles well. What a find he was out of North Carolina. A coach's son, just everything you look for at the linebacker position outside of, I suppose, elite athletic traits. But yeah, I think he's going to be a 10-year vet, a guy that probably never makes a Pro Bowl, probably never is an All-Pro player, not a Hall of Fame kind of guy, but just a franchise player. Not, we say franchise quarterback all the time, but guys that are just rocks for your team for a long time that you go a little under the radar. It's just kind of where I sit with Cole Holcomb. And then Ronald Darby, +1, 78 to a 79. Between him and Fuller, great signings to just basically fix this secondary overnight. Great job by Ron Rivera there. Ronald Darby is a player that I think needs to be extended here. But yeah, he's been awesome. And then Jeremy Reeves, veteran safety, playing okay. There's been some missed tackles. He's not been perfect, obviously, at 67, but he's filled in nicely. And then Jimmy Moreland in the slot, kind of rounding out this group of athletic, spicy corners. This defense, I think, heading into next year, warrants a lot of hype. And then another team building hype for next season already, the San Francisco 49ers, taking down the Cardinals last week. Both sides of the ball stepping up. So Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Mike McGlinchey blocking their asses off. We'll go one by one here. Trent Williams, just such a freaking good trade for the Niners. Staley retires kind of surprisingly in the middle of the draft, and they're able to just kind of sneak in there, pull arguably the best left tackle away from Washington, and just plug him into this offensive line. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to retain him or what, but yeah, Trent Williams has just been the best run blocker, maybe period, in the NFL this year. He's basically back to his prime. He's stayed healthy. You can't say enough about that move by the Niners. It's just a shame that the rest of the team couldn't stay healthy. Laken Tomlinson, he's a star guard at this point. He's been a rock for this team week to week to week. He's so comfortable in this scheme. He was a first round pick for a reason. He's got some of that strength and get off you look for in a tough run blocking guard. And coming over from Detroit, he's found a home, to say the least. And then Mike McGlinchey, he's right there with Trent Williams for one of the best run blockers in the league. Now, McGlinchey, there is some pause on this because he has actually struggled quite a bit as a pass protector, something he needs to work on, but he makes up for it with what he does in the run game. And then CJ Beathard's going to go up, just probably had him a little bit too low there, 56 to a 60. Obviously a capable backup right there with Nick Mullins. And then Jeff Wilson, the blocking he's getting in front of him obviously helps. The Niners have shown time and time again that the running back just doesn't really matter here as long as he's fast and is fast in a straight line. And that's Jeff Wilson. It's just plug and play with speed backs in this system. But Jeff Wilson, a cool story. A guy that had a terrible pro day, ran like in the 4.6s, and honestly, I don't know if the speed truly showed up at North Texas, but coming in, working at it, and fighting his way up to a competent NFL caliber running back play. And then Daniel Helm, a tight end that's been kind of in and out here, but he's going up, had a couple good weeks of blocking. And then for the defense, Alex Barrett, a journeyman pickup, is getting some nice rotational reps, both as a pass rusher and a run defender. And then all three linebackers going up. You can see why this team traded Quan Alexander. Alexander's an explosive player, and I like him in his own right, but he does have both tackling problems. He misses a lot of tackles and injury issues. And you might not get necessarily the sideline-to-sideline speed with guys like Greenlaw and Al-Shair, but they are, to me, more instinctive players, better risk assessors, and better tacklers. So good on the Niners to basically be able to find their types of linebackers, get something for Quan Alexander, and not miss a beat with this group. And then obviously Fred Warner helps carry the load. He is making a case to be the best linebacker in the NFL. I think, Wagner and Kendricks and Levante David, those four are kind of in a tier of their own. You pick your poison for who's number one. I'm not going to really debate you on it. But yeah, this group of linebackers is pretty tight. Then the cornerbacks, Jason Verrett, one of the stories of the year. We're so eager to give Alex Smith the Comeback Player of the Year award, and I get it. But Jason Verrett just might be a better pick. I mean, the amount of injuries he had over the last 3 years, it was frankly laughable. Like, I had made jokes about it. I kind of feel bad about it because it's hard to make fun of injuries, but it really was pretty crazy. Like, the second he would get activated, like literally, like an hour into the first practice, consistently, multiple times for different teams, like he would get activated, and then the next day it's like, oh, there goes another ACL. Oh, there goes an Achilles. There goes whatever. But the Niners extend him. He was here last year. And the same thing happened, but they bring him back, and he stayed healthy. And a healthy Jason Verrett is a baller. And this isn't even necessarily the best scheme fit because, he's a quick dude. He can man dudes up, and they run a lot of cover three here. He's not necessarily the best press guy, but the Niners have made it work. And I'm just saying, I think you give Comeback Player of the Year to Alex Smith because of the weight of the injury he had, but Jason Verrett has actually been good at his position and has been out of the league due to injuries longer than Alex Smith. So I don't know. I'm just going to throw that out there. And then Akello Witherspoon, a player that has really not shown development since a good rookie year, but he's clicked. With Sherman out, they've needed guys to step up, and Witherspoon fits that mold of that lengthy press cover three corner, and potentially, a guy, I think next year heading into the last year of his contract, a guy that could be trying to make a case for being a high caliber corner. We don't know if they're going to have Sherman and Verrett here next season, so Witherspoon could be a pivotal point for this team's offseason based on how he's playing right now. Next up, the New York Giants. Very little to say here. Caden Smith, Stanford tight end, and his second year, I believe, has been a good blocker for this team. This offense has really been stinky. The defense hasn't been great. It hasn't been bad. They've just kind of been what we've projected them to be over the last, I would say, 2 months of the season. But anyway, Darius Slayton is going to go down. He has not stepped up for this team. They have talent at these receivers between Slayton, Ingram, and Russell. or Sterling Shepard, not Russell Shepard. They just haven't been stable for this team. And Slayton has had some hands issues. He's just not coming down with tough catches. They're peppering him with targets, and it's just not working. Obviously, the quarterback play hasn't been great, but it's now been 2 or 3 months since Darius Slayton has lived up to that 77 rating. So he's just going to come down 1. I think he'll be all right when the quarterback play improves. But I think it's hurting his production on the field, or just his play on the field in general, because the catches just haven't been there, and he's had opportunities. Okay, then for Detroit, just a couple people moving on the defense. Hard to have any true takeaways off of what we've seen. So if guys are playing well, I'll reward them, but it's just a mess here. Like, if guys are out of position and not trying, like, I really can't blame them, to be completely honest. But there are some guys stepping up on this defensive line. Romeo Okwara, just a total spark this season. I don't know if it's having Julian, his brother, in the building and wanting to be better than him or what, but a complete outlier season for him. I don't know if it'll sustain or not, but the dude has over 50 pressures. I think he's closing in on double-digit sacks. I don't really look at sack numbers, to be completely honest. But he's been all over the field. He's been this team's best player on defense this year, almost inarguably. I don't know who else you would even put in that conversation. So Romeo Okwara making a name for himself. And then Austin Bryant stepping up as that tough run defender that he was at Clemson. The gap between Austin Bryant and Clelin Ferrell, both coming out of Clemson that year, it was there. There's a reason Bryant was a 4th rounder and Clelin Ferrell was a 1st rounder. But it's not that big. They're both really good, big run defenders, play with that tough discipline. So I do think they have a nice rotational piece there in Austin Bryant. All right, the Green Bay Packers got some terrible news New Year's night with the David Bakhtiari injury. That's just a buzzkill heading into the playoffs. But this is a red-hot team with a lot of players stepping up. So these guys are going to have to continue to play well to compensate for that Bakhtiari injury. But anyway, Corey Linsley, luckily they did just get him back. So Linsley has been quite possibly the best center in the NFL this year. He's definitely in that conversation. He's just continued to develop as a run blocker. He's always been a steady pass blocker, but he has played very well in the LaFleur, Shanahan, Kubiak system here as a run blocker. So he's going up. Billy Turner going up. He might be the guy that has to step into that left tackle spot. We'll see how that all plays out. But he's just been steady for this team all year long. That was another kind of good signing by Brian Gutekunst. I issued a Brian Gutekunst apology in the podcast this week. Billy Turner did get a pretty nice contract last year. He's getting paid about $6-7 million. Was a guy that had never been a top guard for Denver, but showed that versatility. And it's not just the Bakhtiari injury. Linsley's been hurt. Wagner's been hurt. They lost Lane Taylor. They've had a lot of injuries on this offensive line. And Billy Turner and Elton Jenkins, the versatility of these guys is really nice. They can really move them around and play them where needed. So Billy Turner can play guard, tackle on either side. Just a nice signing. And then Devontae Adams, EA put him in the 99 club this week. May or may not be deserving of that, depending on how you look at how that should work. But this does make Devontae Adams the highest rated receiver in the NFL, 94 to a 96. He is just crushing it. Seems to be putting up 100 yards, almost double-digit catches, multiple touchdowns every week. He is this team's offense. It's basically just a good offensive line, a good running game, and then Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams working magic. And the things that they're doing between Adams and Rodgers, it's such high-level stuff. It's, throwing inside when the corner stacks you. So, like, a throw that no one's going to make. Like, if the corner has beaten Devontae Adams and is on top of him, Rodgers will throw it inside and Adams will adjust. Or him getting double covered in the red zone and just stopping on a dime and working back to Aaron Rodgers on a second read reaction play. It's not just that he has the cleanest release in the NFL. It's not just that it makes an argument to be the best, most fluid route runner in the NFL. It's the things we just described and the fact that he has improved his catch in traffic, his hands. That has been an issue that's plagued him honestly up till about week 3, week 4 of this season. It's just he wasn't always a guy that came down with those contested catches and did have drop issues. Those have both gone away. They've been strengths of Davante Adams. And then on top of that, he's one of these guys like Jarvis Landry, Keenan Allen that have seemed to have gotten faster as his career has gone on. He is like stacking corners on the outside, running away from dudes. The play against, I think it was Detroit, speaks for itself. They just couldn't catch him. There's a guy that ran a 4.55 40. That doesn't show on tape. He is a legitimately fast receiver that he seems to have found a way to, whether it's accelerate harder or something he's changed in the way he runs to just be faster. So it speaks for itself. Davante Adams has just been incredible. Then Equanimous St. Brown, plus 167 to a 68. He's been reliable in the last few weeks when they call his number, which is very few and far between, but nice to have a piece like that on the offense. And then A.J. Dillon was definitely a star of the week candidate. That was the game that they drafted A.J. Dillon for. There's a certain aesthetic to A.J. Dillon in a snow game for the Green Bay Packers that just works. And I criticize the draft pick. If they didn't take Josiah DeGuara in the 3rd round, or they found another way to get a receiver, I did like the pick because he opens the door to not pay Aaron Jones. But ultimately, I mean, he is a great fit for this scheme, for this team, and he's going to be a fun one here in Green Bay. I will say, Jamal Williams coming back from injury, this team would be pretty dumb. With all respect to Jamal Williams, he's a good player, but to not use A.J. Dillon would to me be a critical mistake, and this is a team now that has lost David Bakhtiari. They need to continue to make the right moves to win every margin they can. We'll see how that all plays out. And then on the defense, Rashawn Gary continues to reach his potential, very comfortable in this scheme. The power rushing that I stuck my neck out for Rashawn Gary in the pre-draft process and said, this guy has a rare ability to convert speed to power and have a long arm bull rushing technique that very few players in the NFL are capable of. There were reps that looked Khalil Mack-esque in that very specific rush move where he sets up very quickly to the outside and then drives a long arm into the offensive lineman's chest and drives him back. And when you have a move like that is so difficult to block, you're going to develop well. You're going to be able to stem that into other moves. So Rashawn Gary seems to be just getting started here, had his best performance against the Tennessee Titans. And then Chris Barnes, Kamal Martin, a couple of young linebackers, a couple of rookie linebackers stepping up and playing some of the best linebacker that this team has seen in some time. They're young, they're not perfect, but good scouting again by these Packers that have kind of changed my mind on the what this front office is doing. And then Jair Alexander completely took Corey Davis out of the game, which allowed the rest of the coverage unit to focus on A.J. Brown and for the defense to come down and take out Derrick Henry. And I think in a lot of ways he is the best corner in the NFL. It's a matter of style and preference. If you want the playmaker, the guy that's going to body a receiver and come down with a tough game-changing interception, you want Xavier Howard. If you want that big physical corner that can go against your DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins type, you're taking Jalen Ramsey. But if you need to match a Corey Davis type of athlete, say Antonio Brown, a Keenan Allen, a Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper, those kind of guys, give me Jair Alexander to give you the best chance to slow a guy like that down. You're never going to stop those types of receivers. But I think Jair Alexander, with his quickness and technique and everything that he brings as a corner, I would take him in those types of scenarios. Then Darnell Savage, another draft pick here. Both him and Rashawn Gary were first-round picks last year. He looks outstanding. You make a case, he's been the best safety in the NFL over the last month of the season. The range and instincts and just get off and explosiveness starting to pop, and he's playing faster as he's more comfortable with the speed of the game nowadays. The Packers actually traded down to get Jair Alexander. They got a first-round pick in the future draft that they then used on Darnell Savage. So they turned one pick into these two players. You really can't argue with that for Brian Gutekunst. All right, then for the Carolina Panthers, not quite as much movement here, but Rodney Smith, shout out to the Golden Gophers. This is a 24-year-old rookie. It's why he was not drafted. A guy that has had injuries and has a lot of tread burned on the tires. But when healthy, Rodney Smith can absolutely play. He's your typical, think like Thomas Rawls, if you remember him, a guy that is just going to go all out. He's going to run through tackles, good vision, tough dude. And then Miles Hatsfield, slot corner, rookie, undrafted, is getting some reps here and has been serviceable, so he's going to go up one. And then just a note, Derek Brown is playing really good football, starting to live up to the rating that I have him at a little more as that top 10 draft pick. My comp for him was Akeem Hicks, a guy that can be a dominant run defender, but do enough to contribute as a pass rusher to warrant being a nose tackle that gets drafted in the first round, and that's what we're seeing. I believe he leads all rookies in pressures this season. So Derek Brown, paying back some of that value that they spent such high capital into. And then for the Rams, Jared Goff is going to come down here. I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of excited to see John Wofford just because he's athletic. There's so many times Goff rolls out and you don't trust him to make the right decisions, but the way this offense operates with all these bootlegs, a mobile quarterback can sometimes just take 6-7 yards on those bootlegs if everything's covered up, and Jared Goff just isn't capable of that. He's just not playing good football right now. Going back to the Jets loss, and he played really well early on in the season, was playing much more sharp, and it's just not showing up, and he's making more mistakes. So he's going to come down, and then Sebastian Joseph Day continues his skyrocket as a, frankly, dominant run-defending defensive tackle for Brandon Staley's defense here. So third week in a row, Sebastian Joseph Day getting some respect. On to the New Orleans Saints, and this is where I'm going to ruffle some feathers because Alvin Kamara is actually not going to go up this week. I'll talk about that. But the offensive line standing out this week, Teron Armstead just clearing pathways. A dominant performance against the Vikings. Totally stood out. Huge for the Saints at this point in the season to get Cesar Ruiz, their first-round pick, going. Remember, they cut, the name's escaping me. I want to say Walford. Is it something Walford? But they cut him early on in the season to clear up some cap space. Was a bit of a surprise. But they had just drafted Cesar Ruiz. They're really hoping he could step in and be just like Eric McCoy was and be that day one impact. And clearly he needed some time. He was a center in college. He's only 21 years old. I had lowered him. I liked Cesar Ruiz a lot. But I had lowered him. He was struggling. I think that's fair to say. But he is settling into this role. He gets great coaching. He's got great help around him. And he's a really high upside guard. And if he is starting to reach that upside, holy crap, this offensive line is next level, and we saw it in full force against the Vikings. And Adam Troutman as well, another rookie from this class. He's been the best blocking tight end in football this year. He was a great blocker at Dayton. I did have him as the best blocking tight end in this class, but I didn't think it would translate. Obviously, he was the best blocking tight end at his level of competition at Dayton, at Division 1AA or D2, whatever that is. But for it to just translate to the next level just like that, crazy. Like, this dude is a beast. And, this receiving game is, the passing game is limited, and they have Cook ahead of him. But I do think Troutman has a lot of upside as a receiver as well. So I'm excited about this rookie class for the Saints. They seem to have done it again with limited capital and draft picks. Lil Jordan Humphrey is going to go up, a former Texas star that historically ran a 4.8 40. Might have a little lack of upside there with his athleticism, whether that's legit or not, but was always a great hands guy. He came down with a touchdown. So he's going up, and then Drew Brees is going to go down. It's just not looking good. He to me, before the injury, was really sharp and was riding such a thin line as far as playing perfect, but he was doing it. And now we're seeing the flip side of that, and if he is a half a second late, or if he does get forced off of rhythm, you're seeing those physical limitations show up, and the accuracy, he'll short arm throws and all that stuff. It's not always pretty here for Drew Brees. And then let's talk about Alvin Kamara. Yes, it was incredible. 6 touchdown performance, 7 forced missed tackles. This is why Kamara's not going up. He's coming off 5 straight weeks of not lackluster play, but I do have him rated currently as the second best running back in the NFL if you want to talk about my Madden roster. So I'll give him plenty of credit. He was awesome this week. But sometimes I do say it. Stars do need to play like stars sometimes. And yes, he had 6 touchdowns. Look, it was on 22 carries. He had 155 yards. That was awesome. Running backs do that. The guys rated next to him have multiple games with more yardage than that. Kamara, I think, is currently rated properly. This was the first game of his season where he went over 100 yards. So, yeah, he's Offensive Player of the Week. He was incredible. It does not necessarily mean he needs to go up, however. So that is my explanation on Alvin Kamara. A great game. Stars play like stars. Happened to fall into the end zone on 6 of 22 carries. Stats are not the entire picture. He also got incredible blocking, and the Vikings defense put up one of the worst performances of the year. So I'm not trying to take anything away from Alvin Kamara, but it was kind of a perfect storm that got him that, not prime time, but it was the only game of the day. Fantasy football championships, a 6-touchdown day. Was to me a awesome story, but a bigger deal than it actually was as far as scouting the player. We know Alvin Kamara is capable of rushing for 155 yards and forcing 7 missed tackles on 22 carries. The touchdowns are what they are. He just happened to get 6 of those carries, not all 6 of them, but a lot of them came down by the goal line. All right. Anyway, I explained that well. Saints fans aren't going to buy it. Regardless, they're going to be pissed, but it is what it is. And then David Onyemata and Shai Tuttle's second week in a row going up. Sheldon Rankins, kind of an afterthought at this point, just a guy that has not been able to stay healthy. He was on the field against the Vikings, but Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, these are the dudes here for the Saints interior. Onyemata, the pass rusher, and a great run defender. He's been one of the better interior defensive linemen this whole season. And then Shai Tuttle, just an excellent find for this Saints team, was an undrafted pickup last year out of Tennessee, was a great player last year, and he's doing the same this year. He just, to me, is very clearly just a good, tough, scrappy interior run defender. And then these edge players as well. Trey Hendrickson, a really impressive performance against the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of you guys know I love a player that talks that trash and then goes and backs it up. So you see him chirping. I think it was Eric Fisher was in there at left tackle. He's chirping them. They're going back and forth. And then on the next play, Trey Hendrickson, who does not wear gloves, bull drives Fisher back, forces Mahomes out of the pocket, and I think someone else ended up getting the sack. But Trey Hendrickson backs it up. I love to see that. Tough dude. He is a powerful 270-pound pass rusher, I believe in a contract season. I want to do a video on contract year players very soon here. And I think Trey Hendrickson, if he is in a contract year, a very nice candidate for that list. And then Carl Granderson, he's an interesting player. He doesn't get a ton of playing time because of the depth they have on this D-line. You obviously have Hendrickson, you have Cam Jordan, you've got Marcus Davenport. So Carl Granderson limited as far as how much he can actually play here. But at Wyoming, he popped, and he was a player that was getting flirted with first-round consideration at times, but off-field concerns and a poor final season forced him out of the draft. He goes undrafted. The Saints pick him up, and again, limited opportunities, but when he's been out there, he looks big and strong, and he plays the run well. He's had some decent reps as a pass rusher. He's an interesting piece, and I actually think that he could totally fill in to the Trey Hendrickson role for this Saints team, who obviously has cap struggles ahead and probably will not be able to retain Trey Hendrickson, although the cap space is a myth here in New Orleans, so who knows. Next up, the Seattle Seahawks, who have had a returning to their, I guess, core, struggling more on offense and playing much better defense. So for the offense, you are going to have some guys falling here. So Tyler Lockett just hasn't played up to that 84 rating. in quite some time. It's not that he's been bad. He's still been reliable, but hasn't been a huge big play threat. The tough catches just haven't really been there. So it's time for him to come down just a little bit. I still really like Tyler Lockett, but clearly DK Metcalf is the better player between those two. And then Damian Lewis, also just a slight pump the brakes here on Damian Lewis. He was one of my favorite picks of the draft. Was a guy that I was certainly higher on than a lot of people for his run blocking ability, and I still definitely believe in the run blocking. But his pass protection, I said it coming out that as much as I loved him, I didn't know if he was going to be a guy that you could start year one, because he does not play well moving backwards. He's very comfortable moving forwards, but when he's got to set his feet, he does not move his feet well. He doesn't anchor well at all, and he struggles with quickness as well. And Aaron Donald, it was just absurd between Lewis and Simmons. Wherever Donald lined up, they couldn't block the guy. And it's not just that. Obviously, people are going to struggle with Donald. Lewis has really struggled in pass protection throughout the season. The last 4 or 5 weeks have been a problem. It's been you can notice it, that Russell Wilson is running for his life much more than he was in the first half of the year, and Lewis has been a part of it. It pains me to say, because I like Damian Lewis, but it's something he needs to work on, that pass protection, just as I said coming out. But he is one of the better run blocking guards in the NFL still. Then Cedric Ogbuehi, he's going to go up too. He's been starting at right tackle with Brandon Shell out. He's started a lot of games in this league, and was a former first-round overall pick. He's got the quickness and length that you look for at that position, but just hasn't really put it all together. But he's back to kind of playing as that replacement level, backup, starting caliber, replacement level, whatever you want to call it. He's filled in at that right tackle spot. It hasn't been great, but he is going to go up. I think Russell Wilson's going to come down again. He's been an average quarterback since November 1st or so. He was the best quarterback in football for the first 2 months, and now he's just been average. He's not processing at a high level. He's making big mistakes. He's getting more uncomfortable in the pocket, and I think this is more than warranted. He just very clearly is not on the level of Rodgers and Mahomes at this point in time. I think if the offense was different around him, if they asked him to do different things, I absolutely think he could get back into that conversation. But the way the offense is currently constructed, I don't see any reason Russell Wilson should be so close to those other two guys. Then Alton Robinson. Another draft take of mine was that the Seahawks, who took Darrell Taylor in the second round and Alton Robinson, I believe, in the fourth round, one of my takes was that Alton Robinson would actually be the better player than Darrell Taylor. Now, Taylor has not been healthy and could still prove this wrong, but part of that take was that I really liked Alton Robinson, and this is a guy that has not gotten a ton of playing time, but was one of my most fun player evals that I wrote on the year, because his athletic traits were frankly close to first-round caliber. 6'4", 265 pounds, thick lower body, explosive player, and he had some good finesse skill sets. But the thing is, at his size, and he's not like an agile dude, he doesn't have a lot of bend, he almost never used power at Syracuse. So my thing with him coming to Seattle is that this is one of the most perfect landing spots to get him to convert that speed that he does have into power, which when used with the strength he has, physically speaking, it could make him a very lethal player. And at that size, he could defend the run very well as well. So I loved the Alton Robinson pick. I had him just ahead of Darrell Taylor on my draft board. Actually, not just ahead. I had him probably a round or two higher than Darrell Taylor. I think I had a fifth or a sixth round on Darrell Taylor and a fourth to fifth on Robinson. But anyway, my take was that Robinson would be a better pro than Darrell Taylor, and he has come out and earned more and more playing time, getting after the quarterback, playing run defense. Quite frankly, might be this team's best pass rusher heading into the offseason, into the postseason. It's not ideal, but for Alton Robinson, that's pretty good. LJ Collier has just played a ton this year. He was a first-round pick last year. That's very clearly, at this point, was not worth it, but he's been stable. He's not making a huge impact, but he hasn't been a liability either, so he's going to go up to a 69 just based on sort of surviving here, I suppose. He's made a couple plays here or there. Poona Ford and Brian Moan, these guys have absolutely stepped up in run defense. This interior group was a problem early on. They tried out Snacks Harrison. It wasn't a fit. And Poona Ford, Brian Moan, they're comfortable letting Snacks go because these guys are really stepping up. And Poona Ford has been contributing as a pass rusher as well. I love me some Poona Ford. It was time to put some respect on his name. And then rookie linebacker, Jordan Brooks. He's been playing well, getting more and more playing time. Just kind of flying around the field. He doesn't have to do much because they have Wagner and KJ Wright here. But in that role, he's good. I mean, that's what he kind of was at Texas Tech, was just see ball, hit ball, not a lot of instincts and coverage. They're going to need to grow those for him, and I think they can. But he's a really nice fit for a third linebacker. And then I love that they're playing Ugo Amadi finally. I said this last year, that they were playing way too much base defense because they felt they didn't have a slot corner. And maybe Ugo Amadi took some time to get up to speed at slot corner because he was a guy that played a lot of safety in college. But regardless, I thought that Ugo Amadi is a guy that they should have been playing at slot corner, playing much more nickel defense than they were last year. And I love that this year they have woken up on that. I think Pete Carroll has evolved quite a bit as far as, just changing the cover 3 scheme a little bit. Things like playing a DJ Reed, who's a 5'9" corner on the outside. This is a team that's had one of the most stubborn height cutoffs of any team in the NFL, not wanting to play anyone under 6 feet tall, and they've really struggled at corner. So admitting their flaws there and saying, look, length isn't the only thing that matters at corner. DJ Reed is a really smart zone guy that can play slot, outside, free safety. They stick him outside. They grow up and start running more nickel defense. They get more creative with Jamal Adams and utilize him as a blitzer in ways that they never did with Cam Chancellor. So, like I said about week 6, week 7 is, Pete Carroll, they're going to do what they need to do defensively to make sure that this is a serviceable unit heading into the playoffs, and they've absolutely done that. And then our final team here, the Minnesota Vikings. So Ezra Cleveland continues to play well at right guard. That athleticism and get off as a run blocker is shining through in this Kubiak scheme that emphasizes the ability to get on the move and block those reach blocks and outside zone and duo getting up to the next level. And then Justin Jefferson, +1. It was just time for another boost. He's been so steady. He's been a top 10 receiver in the NFL as a rookie. The route running is so polished. He reminds me a lot of Keenan Allen in that he's deceptively fast. He's deceptive in his route running as far as head fakes and shoulder fakes and misleading people with his hips, his hands, his ball skills. He is very similar to Keenan Allen. He can step outside. He can play in the slot. So that is my new comp for Justin Jefferson. It used to be, I had Robert Woods or Tyler Boyd was my college comp. But I think the upside is even higher for Justin Jefferson because his route tree is so refined so early on. Then Anthony Harris is going to come down. He just hasn't been an impact here. I know the surrounding unit is rough, so it's hard to bag on him too much. But this is a guy that had some really surprising breakout seasons, led by some pretty nice interception, let's just say production, not luck. He had some really nice picks in there, but they're not showing up. The tackling has been hit or miss a little more. So he's just going to come down a little bit. He is a player that is not necessarily having a contract year and making himself a ton of money after he caught the franchise tag. And then Cameron Dantzler was a nice pick for the Vikings, 3rd rounder. Really nice ball skills. Now, the last 4 weeks, he's been what you expect from a good rookie corner, basically. And that is he'll have some moments of brilliance, some really great games, but he'll also get lost and have some stinkers out there. And it's not something I hold against him. Obviously, he's going up here. He's had 2 out of 4 really great games, and then he's had 2 games where he's looked like a rookie. But to me, I would say that outside of, I guess, quarterback, but even in today's game, you could argue corner and linebacker are the hardest positions to play for a rookie coming into the next level. All right, there are your studs and duds. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please do hit that like button. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I missed anybody. And then I will be hopefully back tomorrow with the AFC version. I'll let you guys know by a post or something if that changes. That's the plan as we sit here today. All right, cheers, everyone. We'll see you for the next one. Peace out.